Hey, this agent tier list for Valorant is specifically looking at the importance of which agent to pick when you're trying to learn Valorant. We'll start off with best to learn, and we'll start off with Omen. Omen is the king of all trades, impactful in many different modes, and lets you learn those modes. Basically, if you want to play an agent that lets you learn the majority of the game, Omen is the best choice. Next is Raze. Raze is similarly impactful, very duelist focused in that, but can branch out and do other things whilst impactful in her own themes. So basically, she can play to stall out the enemy, she can play to go in and be very, very impactful as a duelist. She can aim to play slow and use the boombot to take some space. She has a lot going on for her. Next is Jett, and Jett lets you take the first fight every round. This is very, very impactful and lets you learn where and when to take that fight. It also teaches you how to entry as well. And you also have a bit of clutch potential with smokes. Next is good to learn, and we'll talk about Phoenix. Phoenix never goes out of style. He's basically always positive win rate in solo queue, and the reason for this is because he's very, very broad as an agent. His ult is great to incentivize you to fight with it or to fight to get orbs for it. And the flashes are super hard to dodge, and he has good extension utility with his wall and his molly to do other things, such as a set play with the molly or a lurk with the wall. Chamber is very similar to Jett, just without the entry aspects, and also both. Something I forgot to mention with Jett is that you can learn the op very easily on Jett, and you can do the same with Chamber. Gecko, who is actually really, really strong at the moment, is really, really good to kind of help you understand the game too. Reusable utility will help you understand taking boxes of space and allows you to make space in your knowledge for other high-level things, such as inserting. Next is Cypher. Cypher helps you to learn macro, passive info, and lurk timings. And the first agent in the list that I probably wouldn't strictly recommend, I would recommend you start playing them probably about Ascendant 3. Next is Skye. Skye helps you understand the binary info and how to support your team with the initiator utility. Next is KO. Very similar to Skye, but has more room for playbook creation and more incentive to fight. Next is mostly impactful learnings. So usually these agents are going to either fit very deeply into a theme and help you learn that theme, or they're going to have some mini games. So first is Brimstone, explosive site taking and post-plant utility, very aggro, and not really good at too much else. So when it comes to things like defaulting, he tends to want another controller to kind of help him do that. Next is KJ, similar to Brimstone, will help you learn deeply in a specific theme. KJ aims to control the space she already owns, which is something that is very difficult to implement on attack. So usually she likes to work with initiators because she can't really take control very much of her own. Next is Yoru, Astra, and Viper. I put these three together because they're all kind of minigame agents. They have a lot of non-transferable skills that they need to kind of be impactful. Usually I recommend these agents above Immortal. However, Viper does have maps where she kind of wants to be played over other agents, like she's like the meta. So it can be difficult to avoid Viper sometimes. Next we have Fade, who really suffers from the reveal agent syndrome, where you kind of struggle to get solo impact. She does get a bit more than Sova though, because the Prowlers and the ult can definitely help to clear out space. And the Seize is really nice to help with trap playmaking. Next we have Clove. So Clove is still new, so I don't have the best read on them right now. So this is kind of like a safer position to put them in, I would say. But generally you're going to be looking for positions to fight. And unfortunately you usually have a price to get the payoff, which isn't too great. When we think about things like Jet Dash, there's no price to pay to get the payoff. With Clove, there's always with Clove, very similar to Reyna, there's prices to pay to get the payoffs. Although placing the smokes while dead is quite nice and help you feel more confident when you're like learning smokes. Realistically, if you want to play Clove, you should just play Omen. Next is mostly unimpactful learnings, and usually the ones here just don't have as much impact in actual solo queue, or they don't have too much to learn. So first we've got Breach, and he definitely comes into the category of not too much to learn. He's very easy to learn, and it also kind of limits him with his low skill ceiling as well. So I recommend him to low elo, but then I recommend that you transfer to a different agent that maybe has a bit of a higher skill ceiling. He might also be a bit overall too supportive for solo queue, so you want to keep that in mind. Next is Harbor. Harbor has a really high skill floor, pretty much the exact opposite of Breach. High skill floor, high skill ceiling, expects your team to have a base level of understanding for you to really get the actual impact out of him. And if we don't get the actual impact out of him, it's really hard to measure how we actually improve. Next is Deadlock, and I think it's probably surprising that she's come in higher than other agents, but she lets you learn how other agents sort of enter into spaces that she owns, right? So it means that you kind of need to think like, where do I put my stun, my trap? Because I don't want to place it just at the entry point, brain dead. I want to put it where the dash will end, where the jet dash will end, or where the raise satchel will end. So you need to kind of think about what the pathings are going to be. I also think as well she's really good at supporting the Gecko attack style, where you take boxes of space and it kind of gives her something to do on attack, where you can kind of take that space and then you can kind of leave the deadlock util there, and anyone trying to re-explore might run into your insert, or they might run into like a trap or something. I think it's really quite a strong style that she has. It's just that she lacks the like the numbers, or like maybe a bit of impact right now in solo queue. It might be due to a bit of a stigma around it, to be honest, because honestly I think deadlock can be quite scary to play against if the person knows what they're doing. Next is Sage, and Sage to me is an absolutely horrible agent, either broken or useless. I never recommend playing her to learn. She's way too supportive, and she has way too limited decisions. A lot of her decisions, for instance, her decision to heal or not, or her decision to res or not, are locked behind walls that have hard prerequisites. That you need to have like a dead teammate in a decent position, or a heal. It needs to be on a teammate that's actually impactful to heal them, and even then they can still get one tapped anyway. So to me, it doesn't really feel very impactful to play Sage, and it's really hard to learn things on Sage. Her wall, though, to be fair, is a nice ability. Next is Sova. Sova reveal agent syndrome again, with he's like too supportive and he's very high level. So he's another like Immortal Plus agent that requires a level of understanding from your teammates to really show your impact, and therefore if you can't show your impact, it's really hard to measure your improvement. Next is Neon. Neon, once again, too unimpactful. However, this time without support, you kind of need that support to kind of really get the impact out of Neon. So really, maybe you want to be in a duo queue if you ever really want to play Neon, because otherwise you're going to lose situations because of the lack of your own agency, rather than improving on that situation. It's really hard to find avenues to actually improve on Neon. And finally, we've got Worst to Learn. So we're going to start with ISO. ISO is like a minigame agent with his ult, where he kind of introduces a little minigame where you need to tell your team like what you're going to do. And then if you do it and you isolate that one team, that one enemy, then they can go push into the site or whatever. That's usually the best way to use his ult. And he has some other things too. The problem is that his ult itself is pretty weak, so that minigame isn't really that useful to learn anyway. And the other stuff in his kit, while the Fragile is quite a nice ability, it's not necessarily teaching you anything new that you can't learn on other agents. Finally, Reyna. Reyna doesn't really teach you anything you can't learn on any other agent. She's basically playing Valorant in its simplest form. She's super reliant on your ability to put in reps and drills and time, rather than actually putting in work to learn the game itself, if that makes sense. So this is my full tier list. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in my next one.